What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Powered by Primus, and in today's video I'll be showing off a deck list that a subscriber did send to me. They wanted me to mess around with the deck, kind of show off some stuff to it. It looked like a pretty fun list, so I figured I would definitely give it a try. Now, it does feature and does revolve around Wave 1 Shockwave, which has always been a really fun favorite character of mine just because of his abilities. And then we do get the utility of a Flame War, which I absolutely love. And then we do get some really awesome Brave and some really good structure to the deck to really help protect Shockwave, which is really, really nice because usually when you run Shockwave, he's easy to KO, he's really kind of easy to get to, and it takes a little bit to set him up. So it did end up being a really negative result of the original list that I always built just because it was so easy to get to him. However, I've really never revisited him other than like a double Shockwave that I did do. But this was a really fun thing that I did see, and like I said, I did make some changes to the list that was originally sent to me. Obviously, that was the point, was for me to make some adjustments, get some playtesting in with it, and see some really fun things. So I'm going to be showing off this team, a couple of cards from the list, and then I'm going to be showing I'm going to be showing some gameplay as well right after this. It's a new style I'm trying with some of these smaller decks, just to kind of give a little bit of a detail about the deck, kind of about the team, and then show you guys some gameplay. Now, since the deck does revolve around Shockwave, we're going to be showing him off first. Now, he is a specialist, which is relevant in this list. However, he is a spaceship and a leader as well, so I'm going to talk about some cards that are kind of a cool addition that you can use for him. I'm not using in this list. He does come in here with 6 attack, 11 health, and 3 armor. Now, the 11 health is honestly where the biggest struggle for the character is. He doesn't have that much health. The 3 armor is really nice, and judging by this team, you guys can probably tell we are going to be running a very heavy blue list. We're going to be able to get access to the tough. So hopefully we can really do a lot to be able to keep him around, which is really, really nice stuff. It says when you flip to this mode, each player draws 2 cards, which is really, really nice. It really helps refuel your hand. And then we are going to have some really fun tricks to be able to do with this as well. So we'll talk about those here in just a moment. When we flip to this mode, we go down to 4 attack, and we get to keep 3 armor, which is actually really rare to be able to see that kind of armor on a character in bot mode. Usually they do lose armor from one mode to the other. However, we only lose 2 attack here. We get to keep 3 armor, which is actually really nice because he's going to be spending most of his time, if not all of his time, in this mode. We're only going to really flip to this mode just to be able to pick up a couple of cards if we need it. It is relevant sometimes to be in this mode because we do get the 6 attacks if we're trying to finish a character. Again, this is a heavy blue list. We do have a couple of ways of beefing him up a little bit. So if we do want to get a KO on a character, then it is nice to be able to attack in this mode. But when you make your opponent scrap a card, they have to take 1 damage and put 1 damage onto one of their characters. So if you make your opponent scrap 4, they have to do 1 damage to one of their characters 4 times. Now, they can choose different targets for each trigger. Just remember that it does not count as just straight up putting 4 damage on one character. They do individually trigger. Now, sometimes that can also be a really good thing because if your opponent only has a character with 1 health left, instead of them being able to dump all 4 damage in this instance onto that one character, and you're essentially wasting 3 damage, they do have to target the character. He takes 1, gets KO'd, and then there's still 3 damage that has to get divided out. So it's really nice stuff to be able to stack that ability. Next character coming in is going to be Flame War. She has 3 attack, 10 health, 1 armor. And it says when you flip to this mode, each of your characters gets bold 1. Now, we will not be flipping her to this mode, so we're not going to have to worry about that side. We're going to keep her in this mode. She has 3 attack, 1 armor, and then it says each of your characters gets tough 1. Tough 1 allows you to flip 1 more card while defending, and obviously this is a blue list we've talked about, so it's really nice when it comes to us defending. We can flip more of those blue cards. Maybe we flip a white pip and then get 2 more, so we can really ramp up how much defense that we are playing in the deck, which is really nice to help try to keep us alive. Now, the main reason for that is with this Sergeant Scrapnel here, a new character coming in with Wave 3, which is really awesome, has 4 attack, 11 health, and 2 armor, and has Brave. Now, Brave is a fantastic mechanic. It's really nice in this deck because our opponent is forced to always attack Scrapnel. If our opponent gets to go first, rather than maybe getting a damage in or 2 onto Shockwave here, they have to go into him, and then if we do attack, then they still have to go into Scrapnel, even if we happen to be tapped both ways like this. It does force them into the Scrapnel, and then obviously Flame War also doesn't get hit, which means that Tough is just going to really last for a lot longer, which is really, really nice stuff. Now, when we flip to this mode, he does go into 5 attack, 1 armor, and it says that when an upgrade is scrapped from one of your characters, so one of these 3, then you get to repair 1 damage from this. Now, this is going to be relevant because we do have a couple of armors and some other stuff in here that do allow us to scrap them and really get a big benefit from it, and then also being able to heal him is really nice. And then we have to flip back to this mode to get that Brave turned back on. So now we have even more health, and they still have to go into our Scrapnel, which is really, really nice stuff for that character. Now, since we're going to be talking about Shockwave's ability, because this is obviously going to be the point of the deck, we're going to talk about some of the different cards that make our opponents scrap. First one coming in here is going to be Disruptive Entrance. Now, first off, it's a blue battle icon, which is really, really nice. And then it is an action. It says, look at your opponent's hand, and you may scrap an action from it. Really, really cool stuff. Now, originally, I was using this to test, to be able to get, like, press the advantage, reckless charge, some of these other things out of our opponent's hand, just because they are really devastating against us, because even if we happen to flip a bunch of blues, that +4 turns out to be a lot of damage. Now, we don't have to worry about press the advantage anymore. However, this card is still really good to be able to get some of those really powerful actions out of our opponent's hand that do a lot of damage, or even if it just gives our opponent just more pressure towards us, or even helps really advance their board state. Just a really nice card, one of those cards to be able to just scrap our opponent's stuff. The other fancy one that we have coming in here is System Reboot. Now, this one is probably my favorite in the list just for it, but it does say each player scraps their hand and draws 4 cards. Now, the really cool part about that is that it means that if our opponent has 5 in hand, 10 in hand, 20 in hand, they have to scrap all of those, and then all of those will count towards individual triggers. Now, we do have a fancy little trick in here to be able to flip our Shockwave to make our opponent draw 2, and then we flip back to this mode as our normal flip for the turn, and then we follow it up with a System Reboot, so now our opponent has 2 more cards that they have to worry about scrapping, and 2 more points of damage that they have to divvy up, which is really, really awesome stuff. So, of course, that card's an auto include. Next one coming in is going to be Espionage. Now, Espionage is a white and a green battle icon. White helping us flip 2 more on defense, really good. And then it has a green, which means it is fishable, so we can pick it up after combats. Really, really nice stuff. And it does say choose a battle icon, or I'm sorry, a battle icon color, and then you get to look at your opponent's hand and make him scrap a card of the chosen color. So really awesome stuff. We get to choose a specific card that we're trying to get out of our opponent's hand. Maybe they have a really a ramming speed to get rid of one of our stuffs that I'll show here in just a second, or maybe it's some other card, maybe like a zap that's going to maybe finish off one of our characters late game, or even if it's just that reckless charge or whatever else we were talking about. Really nice to be able to go in there. The other thing about this is it does not only target actions, it's just any card of that color. So if you're going for orange and you're trying to hit a grenade launcher, you still can, because it also hits upgrades. And the last card coming in to mess around with our opponent's hand is going to be Security Checkpoint. Now, first off, it is a double blue battle icon card, so it's really nice for us to be able to flip this on defense, getting all that extra defense. And it says each player reveals their hand and scraps all upgrades from it. Now, this would cause, obviously, our opponent to have to scrap upgrades, get more damage on Shockwave, which is really nice stuff. And then it also gets all those upgrades out of our opponent's hand, so it's a couple cards less that we have to worry about. Also, we are a light upgrade deck, so this doesn't really ever affect us that much. Usually we play the upgrade we want for the turn. We only really ever have 1 or 2 upgrades in hand, so we're usually trying to play them. So we're mainly stacking a bunch of actions in this deck. It is definitely a far more action-heavy deck, which is where this card becomes a lot better, because now we're not really hurting ourselves in the process, and we're making our opponent scrap those cards and getting additional damage off of it, so it can be a really fun interaction. And the last card coming in to really mess with our opponent is going to be the Gamma Launcher. Now, this thing is fantastic. This card is just really, really awesome for Shockwave specifically. It is a blue battle icon first, so it really gets to feed into that blue defensive thing that we're trying to do. And then it is an upgrade weapon, which is really nice. So in this mode, that does put us up at that 6, which is really nice. Or in this mode, now we're getting in for 8. Again, really cool stuff. However, there's more to this card. It says you get to put on Shockwave only. Obviously, no problem. And it says that we can have up to 2 of these in our weapon slot, meaning that we can have 2 on there, and it acts as a +4 at all times. So now we're getting in for 8 in this mode, and we're getting in for 10 in this mode. That is really, really high damage, and that is super awesome. And then the even better part about it, it says when you put this onto Shockwave, your opponent has to choose a card from their hand and scrap it. Well, that does proc Shockwave as well, so not only does your opponent have to lose a card, they also have to take a damage. So really, really cool stuff. Like I said, it feeds into this character so nice. You get to put it on to this mode. They have to scrap 1, they have to take 1, you flip for the turn, and you just send them cracking in for, 8 damage, 10 damage. If you do want to go that route, this does make them draw the 2, so do be cautious of that. But like I said, if you are trying to get that big damage in for that final KO, it's really nice. Or even when we just stay in this mode, you get to get in there for 6. We'll probably still have our Brave guy around, so even attacking into this mode, we still know that we're perfectly protected, which is really, really awesome stuff. So the next thing we're going to talk about is our Scrapnel here, and some of these cards I was talking about going onto our character and then going away, giving us that benefit. First one coming in here is going to be Blast Shield. Now, Blast Shield's really awesome, blue battle icon, so it does help us out with continuing that blue theme. And then it says after the upgraded character defends, you scrap this card. So this goes on to us here. Now we have that base of 3 armor. We most likely have our flame war still, especially if we have our scrapnel around. So now we have 3 armor, tough 1. We flip a bunch of blues, which is really nice. So we most likely don't take any damage. Maybe we take 2, maybe we take 3. And then at the end of it, this gets scrapped and we get to heal 1 from that. And then if we take no damage from the attack, then we get to heal 1, and then we're just going the opposite way on an opponent's attack, which is really, really awesome and really, really fun stuff. So that's going to be the first one. And the next one coming in is going to be evasive maneuvers. Now these are kind of cards that I don't really play that often just because trying to get them to proc and get their abilities has just been a little rough. However, this card on Sergeant Scrapnel is really awesome. Keeps that same blue theme going. It is armor as well. It says that it gives the upgraded character tough 3, and then after that character defends, we scrap this card. Now it kind of keeps the same effect that I was talking about with the previous one. We most likely saw a Flame War, so we'll have access to tough 4, which is going to be lots of blocking, which is really nice. We most likely won't be taking damage unless our opponent's getting in for pierce or high amounts of damage, which is going to be really nice. And then we get to heal 1 at end of combat again, which is really cool. This card for sure, I've been running, I also run it in my Primetime list. I've been using Scrapnel in that list as well, which is with General Prime and with Flame War. So this is a really nice character to put in that list, and I also run grenade launchers and power punches and stuff. So there are multiple upgrades, but this character is starting to get a lot better for me just because of that utility. And then obviously Brave is always just such a fantastic mechanic. It's kind of hard to ever be mad. And then the last little bit we're going to talk about is just some of the fun interactions and some of the cool cards that the deck does have. And the first one is going to be Reclaim. Let me move that. Reclaim says that you get to put a upgrade from your scrap pile on top of your deck. Now the really cool fun part about this is that this is always going to be probably one of your main go-tos. For it, I'm also going to be showing another upgrade here that could possibly be one. But this is really nice to be able to put on our top of our deck, and unlike Major Shockwave, who's able to get it back, most likely we're always going to be in this mode. All you have to do is flip to this mode. Each player draws 2, and then this does go into your hand, and that does get it from your scrap pile into your hand, and then you're ready to next turn flip to this mode, play it, and just kind of continue your assault, which is really, really nice stuff. It's also really nice to be able to put any upgrade on top of your deck, because another fun interaction that this deck has is going to be this Field Communicator. Field Communicator is a white battle icon, and it does say, it's a utility first off, and it does say when you put this onto a specialist, then you may scrap the top card of your deck, and then you may choose to play it. So these two means that you get to play this, you can put this on top of your deck, and then you can play the Field Communicator as your upgrade for the turn, and then boom, you get this thing off the top, and you can put it onto your Shockwave, and then now you get it for free. You can also use it for any of the other upgrades, even if you happen to, possibly your opponent's about to have a big attack into your Scrapnel and you need him to live, then you can reclaim this on top, play the Field Communicator, and then play this onto the Scrapnel, so now he has a little bit of armor, so it's a really nice way to be able to get those back from the scrap pile, and then obviously he blocks, heals, so it's got a lot of really cool fun things to be able to get for some of those interactions from the scrap pile. And then because this is a very action-heavy deck, it only makes sense to run the Brainstorm. Now, Brainstorm is a blue battle icon card, loving it, and it says you may play an action, and then you may play another action. A lot of times I found myself having too many actions in my hand, and I could only really play one for the turn, and I really wanted to play more than one to really kind of advance, because this is a little bit of a slower deck. You're really relying on most of your damage to be coming from Shockwave from his scrap ability, and then from him attacking with the weapon. But if your opponent has cards that keep removing the weapon, it does make it difficult to get in for damage, which is one of the downfalls about the list. However, Brainstorm allows us to play multiple actions on a turn, which really means that we get to kind of keep pushing all of that different stuff. We have cool cards like Escape Route that allow us to flip for the turn, get the draw, we get to flip back, and then we get to use the system Reboot as the other part about it. Then one thing to remember is that this always does proc first before character abilities. So you must finish resolving each card. Even if you play Escape Route, which flips you to this mode, you do not proc this ability. You finish playing the next action, finishing that action's resolves, and then you go into the character's abilities. Character's abilities always will proc. You have to always make sure you guys finish the actions first. So that's why Hunkered Down works the way it's supposed to. And then because I said that the deck was a little bit slower, we do have to rely on getting some damage some other ways. First one coming in here is going to be Underhanded Tactics, blue battle icon card, love it. And it says do 1 damage to an enemy, so we just get to hit for that 1. And then if it KOs an enemy, that way we get to repair 1 for one of our Decepticons. Hopefully our Scrapnel is still out, boom, we get to be able to peck off a character, and then Scrapnel gets to heal for 1. We just constantly make sure that our opponent has to attack into the Scrapnel, and then we really get to benefit from his Brave ability, and it allows us enough time to set up and constantly be getting these scrap effects onto our opponent. Next card coming in is going to be Energon Axe, always a really good thing. It's a blue battle icon, it is a +3 attack, and then is a Pierce 2. Now obviously I don't put this onto Shockwave, seeing as how I'm really trying to stack his weapons, so this is mainly a target for Scrapnel or for Flame War. It's really nice to be able to put onto Flame War just in case your opponent does find a way to get around your Scrapnel since they have to attack into him. If you can get all those extra attacks with Flame War with this on, even after they finish the Scrapnel, you still have it on your Flame War, so that is a really nice thing. And then the last one coming in here is going to be Scoundrel's Blaster. Now it is a blue battle icon, which is the only reason why it's in the deck, and it's only because it's easy to be able to fish up with that green battle icon. We can choose to let it go if we are going up against Decepticons. However, I'm never really a fan of kind of playing these as minis. This is a 2 of them in the list, I believe, and it's only because I can just choose to let it go during flips if I want to. I don't have to rely on getting it, and it's just if you're going up against Decepticons, well then it's just a +2 and it's really not that good. I would probably sideboard it out at that point into some more axes or whatever else the case is. And if you're going against Autobots, well then you just get the lucky hand off of that. Most people are playing Autobots, so you may just get lucky off of that naturally. So that is going to be just a quick breakdown on the list, some of the cards in it. Now let's get into some gameplay.
Alrighty, now getting into the gameplay, there was some glare, so I'm going to be having the cards on the screen like you guys do see here. I'm going to try to make them flip as well when it does work out. So this is going to be the deck in action. Now, unfortunately, I really played 3 different matches and got really screwed as far as the matchups go. Round 1 was against Menasor, or I guess the Stunticons, and Menasor completely Motormaster completely turns off Shockwave's ability because he says that your other characters can't take non-attack or non-direct damage, and then so it just completely mitigates it. And then I went up against another card list that was running defensive driving, so that turned it off completely as well. And then this match is against Ultra Magnus, which also does have the Magnus armor, which does reduce it by 1. So either way, I was really looking at bad matchups throughout the night, but I figured that this is probably the best gameplay that it gets to show a lot of the stuff for it, so it is pretty decent. So I wanted to show you guys this match. Now, like I said, I'm going to be going up against Ultra Magnus here. Now, this is where I do realize that my opponent did not go to get a Magnus armor, so I let him go get another Magnus armor, and then we reshuffle up. I do believe that I won the die roll, and I do choose to go first, and that is just to make sure that he doesn't get a really big hit off that turn 1, and it does allow me to possibly get more cards in my hand to really kind of set up Shockwave here. My goal is to try to get off that Ultra Magnus armor as fast as possible before it gets out of hand, so I can really start to disrupt with a lot of my cards and my abilities. So we're going to flip Flame War turn 1 here. That does turn on the tough 1, and then we do throw in the Scrapnel here, which is really nice, and that just allows that Brave to be turned on. We're going into Ultra Magnus because he also does indeed fact have Brave. I believe we don't get in for any damage here, and we don't. Now this is where it's a kind of an interesting play. Actually, you can definitely go for swinging Flame War first because your opponent doesn't really get a really big hit in on the turn, and then you get to protect her the second round, but I just didn't want to add extra damage to her because he's most likely going to be throwing Ultra Magnus first, who's getting in for a base of 7 to 9, so that might have been still a lot of damage on the Flame War, so I figured I would protect. Now he did go for a secret action here and does flip the Ultra Magnus, attacking. I'm pretty sure with his list that it at this point is an infiltrate as a secret action. He does flip there, and I believe he does get the proc, which does put 1 damage onto each character. As you guys can see now, it also does not put the 1 damage on Ultra Magnus because he does indeed fact have the armor. So that is, again, you guys get to really see just the bad matchup part. I do go through all my flips here. I only take, I think like actually 4 or 5 damage, so it's actually quite a bit because he does get in for so much damage here. But again, the Brave on the Scrapnel is actually really nice because that keeps all the damage off of some of the other characters that I just really need to stick around. So we're going to be flipping our Shockwave here, and it's because we're going to start setting up for some of this stuff. Now I saw that he did not play a spare parts. I don't know if this is the turn I take advantage of that. It is, so I do go for the smelt, which gets rid of the Ultra Magnus armor. Now again, I saw him go to reach for that secret action there, so I was pretty sure it was an infiltrate at this point. So I wasn't really worried about my attacks or trying to worry about anything else. So pretty easy here, and I believe I'm going for a Scoundrel's Blaster, which gives the +2 and then Pierce 2 in this situation, which is actually relevant. Let's see here. Oh no, so it is an Energon Axe, which is even better. So the Energon Axe gave me that +3 and that Pierce 2. So now we're getting in for 6 Pierce 2 on this Ultra Magnus. He does flip pretty bad as far as I remember in this scenario, and takes I think like 3 or 4 damage. All right, so he takes 2, so it's just the Pierce 2, so I was wrong about that. Like I said, this Jetfire Ultra Magnus list is pretty awesome. Really unfortunate with the glare on those character cards and on the battle cards. I do apologize. I tried to set up a pretty good spot, and I just couldn't get anything. The place was pretty busy that night, so was what it was. But he does flip Jetfire here, which does allow him to get back a utility or something, or an armor from the scrap pile. He does choose to get back that Ultra Magnus armor, which is really unfortunate, and then plays the Noble's Blaster for the turn, giving him +2, and then he plays the Supercharge, giving him bolt 3. So he's getting in for quite a bit here. However, I did flip really well on my side. I do believe I survived this attack. He didn't flip that well. One of the disadvantages sometimes when it comes to these mixed lists is that sometimes you flip good, and then sometimes you flip bad. So we do happen to survive here, which is really nice. I believe that puts me at 10, and I think I actually have 1 health left here, which is really nice. I know even if he is running marksmanship, it does require me to be in bot mode, and I know I'm not going to be doing any swapping, so I do go ahead and get rid of, I believe, disruptive entrance from my hand to be able to pick up the espionage. It's just an easier card because I believe I'm trying to go for a specific target here, whether it's the spare parts or whatever else. Do go for the Scoundrel's Blaster this turn, does give us that Pierce 2. It's because I don't have any of Shockwave's weapons yet, so I really just need to start making sure that I'm establishing this damage when I can, and then I do have the Vaporize to get rid of the Ultra Magnus armor, because I'm really afraid he's either going to have like a quartermass, or he's going to have something else that really allows him to just move it over to Magnus, just because I know I have to take Magnus out in this scenario. He just has so much health, does a lot of damage. So we're getting in here for, this is 6, Pierce 2. I do believe we did get in for a pretty big hit there, so now he has 6 damage on that Ultra Magnus. We have quite a bit of an uphill battle here. However, if you guys look at my other characters, I only have 1 on Shockwave and 1 on Flame War, so we're in a pretty good spot. Even with this reset here and him KOing Scrapnel, it still makes my opponent have to waste an attack into the Scrapnel, which is actually really nice here. I'm trying to figure out what he does play this turn. He is looking at a Bashing Shield. I believe that is a spare parts. And I don't, in a force field. This is his last one. So he does play the force field there. Really not a huge factor in this matchup because I'm not really going to be dealing more than 5. So it doesn't really prevent a whole lot of damage. He does flip Jetfire for the turn, getting bolt 1. Flipping some stuff there. And pretty much he flips all blues, I'm pretty sure. And then goes into my defense. I don't think I survive. Oh yeah, the Noble's Blaster is going to be able to get it done anyway because he has Pierce 2 against the Decepticon. So see you later, Scrapnel. Now with that sending him to the bin, I know that I am a little more pressured here because he's going to be spending all of his time going into my Shockwave at this point. There's no point for him to be going into Flame War, so I know that I have to start kind of ramping it up here, especially now that I know that my opponent doesn't have access to that armor, which is relevant. So we're going for the Reclaim here. That does put the weapon on top of the deck. I do get to flip for the turn. We both get to draw 2. This is one thing I was telling you guys about that is pretty nice about the list, being able to reclaim and then get stuff back. And then I do believe I go for the weapon this turn. I do go for the weapon this turn. That does make my opponent have to scrap 1. Now, I am in the wrong mode, so I do not get the ability to get the 1 damage. However, that means that I'm going to be getting in for 8 damage in this mode when I do choose to go to swing, which is really nice, and I do have a setup for next turn, so even my opponent's hand is going to be okay for the turn. So we're getting in here for that Pierce 2. I believe it's a pretty better than a 2 hit. It looks like it got in for 3. So anything is good when it does come to these. Like I said, this is a blue list. It is a little bit of a slower list. I definitely wasn't able to set up Shockwave earlier because I really had to deal with that Ultra Magnus armor. Once it's off the table, though, obviously things start to open up. But it did take me 2 or 3 turns to have to really get through that stuff to be able to get to a decent point. Alrighty, my opponent here is debating on what he wants to do, and I'm pretty sure he's thinking about, I don't think it's a rollout. I'm trying to remember what exactly he does go for here. I know that he does have the leap into battle, or sorry, leap of faith. He does have 1 additional star left over. That does put him at 14, and then 24 with Jetfire, so it does leave the 1 star. So I'm pretty sure this is the turn that he does go for the leap. He did just want to ask here about how this effect does work, if it's just whoever scraps it, and it's just whenever a card is scrapped from my opponent's hand. So that is what the setup is for. And I do believe, like I said, he goes for the leap here. Looks like he is going in. Actually didn't get to see what he plays there. It looks like it was a heavy-handed. So he's getting in for a lot of damage here on this Flame War with that Pierce 4. So it looks like it hits her pretty solid. Puts her up to 5 damage. So just the Pierce 4 gets through on the attack, which is still really nice for him because it does automatically put that 4 on there. You guys can see that if it wasn't for the Pierce 4, we'd have been able to block pretty decent. We are flipping our Shockwave here. We're going to be going for, oh, not the espionage, the field communicator to see what we get, and we get another unfortunate card. So we're just going to throw that in the scrap, pretty useless. My field communicator procs with this deck are really low. I usually don't really hit that well, which is kind of unfortunate. And then we go for a security checkpoint to see what we hit. We do happen to hit these spare parts. That is one thing that I knew that he was holding, which is fine. That does put the 1 damage onto the Jetfire here, which is nice. And then we're going to be able to swing in for 7. Pretty good little hit. We know that even if the Force Field procs, we're still getting in for 4. But even if he blocks pretty well, it's going to be getting in for 4 too. I actually am wondering if I'm debating on who I'm going to be going into. And I'm pretty sure I evaluate Jetfire here as my bigger threat. Let me see. Like I said, don't quite remember. Pretty rough matchup. It was just a rough matches all day. And it looks like he flips a Matrix there, a couple other cards. Not there. Okay, so I did go into the Jetfire, like I said, which is the correct play. With the Jetfire being able to get back the armor, it's really dangerous. And I was also kind of worried that if he didn't flip a white there, he'd be able to flip Jetfire next turn to pick up the armor back from the scrap pile. So I needed to make sure just to try to get some damage in there and hope that he has to shuffle. He didn't. In fact, now he's going to have to shuffle, so he is going to lose access to the armor, which is pretty nice. I'm just changing the dice on Flame War there because I know she's going to be taking some more damage here, and so I wanted to make sure that just I could tick her up. Now, opponent is shuffling, like I said. The really big benefit to that is it does get rid of that armor. I believe that he is going to be chucking that Inspiring Leadership and trying to pick up, I believe it was a Bashing Shield, possibly. We do get the straighten here for the turn. It might have also been a spare parts. Can't quite see what is in there. All right, and I'm pretty sure that this is going to be the leap turn. Not 100% positive. Oh, he does have the Ultra Magnus armor in hand, so he did just top deck it, which is pretty nuts. I did not remember that from the actual night, so pretty cool stuff. So he is going to be flipping here, probably getting back the Matrix. Alrighty, getting that Matrix back, and then when he goes to play his Ultra Magnus armor, it does get rid of the Force Field. Still a pretty big threat. However, he is at 8, so it might be possible to be able to get in here for some of this pure stuff. And I don't remember if I have stuff. He does go for the leap this turn. That did give access to the Supercharge, and then does get an Energon Axe to be able to replace that Noble's Blaster. I do tell him that it's probably just way better to put it onto Ultra Magnus here, so he has access to 2 weapons and not 1 weapon. You know, it's the way that I play when it comes to these kind of situations, especially playing with friends. Always try to make sure that we point out better plays, just because it's bad to obviously try to win on your opponent making a mistake. So make sure that he does put it on the correct character. He does get in here for the bold, and I'm pretty sure he only gets like 1 orange. It wasn't really that much damage. We did flip pretty well with having 2 double blues. And I do believe that he was trying to go into Shockwave here, so I do get quite a bit on the defensive side of things. I think it took like 1 damage. Really awesome stuff. It just goes to show kind of like the power level with the deck as far as with the blues, and having access to 3 armor in bot mode is actually really relevant. So pretty good stuff in all. And then we do, I believe that this is a turn where I start to go for some setup with some Shockwave damage. I'm not quite sure. You can definitely see that I'm in the tank here, and it's because it's really hard to navigate around that Ultra Magnus armor. It is so hard, and with Jetfire always being able to get it back, man, it is just a really, really rough thing. So I'm going to have to take down this character. I do believe that I choose to flip, let my opponent draw 2, and then I just go in for big damage. Although it's still better to throw a Flame War in this situation because then it forces the Ultra Magnus. I do play the Espionage, and it's because I'm going for that spare parts and I know is in my opponent's hand, because if he plays it next turn, then I just pretty much lose the game no matter what. And then the one other thing here that I was talking to him about was if spare parts is a requirement to target spare parts or if it was an optional. I do choose to flip. Do get to draw those 2 extra cards, and do get to choose to throw that Flame War in there, and it's just because that Ultra Magnus now has to swing into Flame War, so even if it is a really big hit, it does leave my Shockwave pretty much alive, because I know I have to rely on damage at this point in the game, because the Ultra Magnus armor is out, and I don't have a way to deal with it yet. Kind of is what it has to be. Even if I get a smelt at this point, I'm just so far behind because my opponent can choose any of his upgrades, so I have to basically top deck a vaporize. So it's a really rough position to be in, pretty much no matter what. So he does flip for the turn, playing now having Ultra Magnus with Brave on him, which is really, really frustrating because now I can't go back into that Jetfire. He plays another secret action and plays the Matrix of Leadership. Again, I called him on the Infiltrates early in the game, and it turns out that is the only secret action in his deck, so I know that's an Infiltrate as well. And it's not a misplay to play it, it's just he's trying to play it. You can also, knowing at this point that he has it, to choose to not play it, so you can use it for a green pip. Now he does attack for more than enough to be able to get my poor little Flame War off the map. So unfortunate, I guess, off the battlefield. But we do draw here, like I said, pretty much realizing what is going on here. I do have to go into this Ultra Magnus, so it is really unfortunate because he still has 11 health. I mean, Ultra Magnus is a monster as far as his stats go. So it is something that is pretty interesting here. I do have the underhanded tactics in hand, and so I obviously can't choose the Jetfire, which is unfortunate because he just gets reduced by 1, but I can choose to go into the other one. My secret action here is Battlefield Report. Allows me just to stack, and so it's pretty nice to be able to help me on defense. We're getting in here for 9, which is not bad damage into the Ultra Magnus. I do believe he doesn't flip very well, so this does get quite a bit of damage onto him. I think it's 6 damage that he has to take. Not quite sure. And then we do get the reset, so it looks like he's going for... So it looks like it was actually quite a bit. So it was 7 damage that we got in there, which is really, really awesome. So that does put him at 13 damage. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. Now we do get this reset. He does have to choose to swing. And at this point, I'm okay with either character that he attacks with because I'm pretty sure that I can finish that character off on the return swing. I was just showing him off some of those upgrades that I do have in the deck that do allow me to scrap him to be able to heal with Scrapnel, and talking about how I just have been super unfortunate and haven't gotten to any of them all game. He did flip Ultra Magnus there, and that does turn back on his ability if he does try for it. He does go for the heavy-handed here, and is choosing to throw him in. Now that Pierce 4 is going to get in no matter what because he actually technically is 1 star over. So either way, he's getting into the Pierce 4. I do go for the Battlefield Report, which allows me to draw 2 and stack top my deck. Now you guys did see that I did just top deck a Vaporize off of that, which is really nice. So I did stack a white on top to be able to help me flip more because I really need to make sure that I'm only taking the Pierce 4 from this. And doing the math here, I think I do only take the 4. Yep, just doing some last little bit of math. I do only take that 4 damage, which is pretty nice. We're still in a really good spot, actually, and I know I'm going to be able to get the KO this turn and be able to get rid of the armor. The thing that I just don't remember is if he's in the right mode, but it looks like he is in the right mode for me to go for this play, and I vaporize the weapon, and the reason behind vaporizing the weapon is just because of the Pierce 2. I do have enough to be able to block potentially here, and then I go for another one of the weapons, which makes me my opponent scrap the last card, and if I would have gotten rid of the armor, it still wouldn't have mattered, but the +2 from the weapon gives the Pierce 2, which is actually more relevant in this scenario, just because I really have enough blues to defend, and the Pierce could possibly kill me, so it's really relying on just being able to not take that much damage from his attack this turn. So we did top deck a Noble's Blaster, and that is the last bit of Pierce 2. No matter how this does play out, I actually get KO'd. So really unfortunate that he did happen to get that off the top of the deck. We just did some math just to make sure, but like I said, no matter what, that Pierce 2 does get through. Now this is the one thing that is really unfortunate about the Shockwave list, is that if your opponent has a way to deal with the 1 damage constantly that's getting, used by Shockwave, then you're pretty much just going to lose the game. You guys can see that in that situation, even this deck being held to such a restraint really has a lot of options to be able to get rid of some of those pesky cards and to really possibly pull it out, which is really, really awesome. It has just a lot of really fun stuff going for it. It's got some really cool synergy. I was kind of showing off something there with the Lord Megatron, but really fun stuff. I do really like this deck. Thank you for submitting the deck. They did want to remain anonymous, so we're going to keep it anonymous, but I did make some changes to the list. I will have the deck down in the description box below for all those you guys who do want to play it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will catch you guys in the next one.